Hi, this is Paul, and we have a repeat guest on today. This is Sally. Many of you might recognize her from the Bridges of Meaning Discord servers. You frequent other Discord servers too.
I've followed some of our saltier friends to other places because I wasn't done getting them to tell me why I'm wrong.
And Sally and I had a conversation 2 years ago.
I think it's almost 2 years. I was thinking about it, and I thought it was last year. Like for a couple of months, I had been thinking it was last year, and then I was like, wait, the baby's had a birthday since then. Oh shoot!
Sally is an artist, and well, I think we're just going to jump right in. If you want to know her story, you can look up the other video. But what do you want to talk about today, Sally? Where should we go?
Well, I had been waiting to schedule a meeting or like a talk with you because I was trying to figure out something else. I was trying to figure out where doubt crept in, because I think that's something that the Christian scene likes to casually just like ignore, is like where doubt creeps in. But I haven't figured it out at all. I've been working on it pretty much this whole time, thinking that'll be my next conversation, but I never figured that out. And I had two major instances, and I don't even know which to put first, but I'll stick with them in order that I was like recommended, sort of. The first one is about masks. And so it's kind of a weird phenomena that everything around Peterson and people get very like fan child of Orthodoxy. And I was one of them. Like, and maybe I still am, because doctrinally, I agree with them more. Okay. The whole, like, there's just a few concepts like sin is an illness, and that whole viewpoint, not being so evangelical. It's more like you are or you are not, and it takes a long time, and like maybe in 7 years you'll become one of us, kind of. I agree with that more. And then the first time I would have had to listen to a bishop, I couldn't do it. Not even like a little bit. So I will explain this a little bit better. So I moved to Florida about maybe 9 months before we talked last time. And the street that I happened to move to happened to have a Greek Orthodox church.
Wow.
On the end of it. And so, as I kind of discussed before, I struggle with where I am. And it's very confusing. But what I don't struggle with is conviction. I wake up or I don't convicted. And ever since my child has been born, I've went to church. It doesn't matter what I do or do not feel like, how I could or could not articulate what I'm going through. I've went to church. Not every Sunday, but I've went to church. And so for a while, I was going to a little beach pastor's little meeting on the side of a coffee shop. And that was okay, but it didn't really have the structure that I wanted for my kid. And so I'd always been curious about the Orthodox Church. I love Paggio. So I went to the Orthodox Church. I went there for over a year. I did part of their intro to Orthodoxy thing. I love the stuff about the communion bread and how they bake it and how they cut it and how, like, just all of it. And there's blessed bread that anyone can have. And then there's the little section in the center that they put in with the wine, and the bread that's not used is given to the birds. And it's so beautiful and symbolically correct. So if you're into that flavor, you can just appreciate it. Like, I was appreciating it on these really high levels. And then COVID happened. And at first, and I need to preface this. So when you talked about how you wouldn't bring people from the tuberculosis ward into the church, I understood that. That made sense to me. Like, logic, reason, like, oh, of course. But it didn't matter, because that had happened before this. So it had been a number of Sundays. I knew you had to wear a mask if you wanted to go. I was going to leave my kid at home because their daycare was completely closed, you know, and this had been probably about 2 months. So like we'd heard a lot of the stuff, but it was obvious people weren't dropping in the streets. So like there's a different level because I took it real serious for the first 2 or 3 weeks. I'm like, okay, let's brace. And after about 3 weeks, Florida basically pitched a fit and we were done with super lockdown. Like the big corporations and stuff, like I'll wear a mask if the store wants me to, but like the big corporations stuff are doing their thing. But the main Florida, no, not going to do it. We were showing up at City Hall and stuff. And I say we, I don't mean me personally. I mean
People.
general Florida man who I love and appreciate more than ever. But anyway, I decided to go to church. I'm standing with a mask in front of my dresser and it made me sick to my guts. And it wasn't about wearing the mask. It was about, I knew the other members of the parish didn't want to wear it, but the order had come from a bishop in Georgia because that's who was in charge. And I thought to myself, well, I'll just take my Orthodox study Bible and I'll just go sit on the lawn and I'll just read on the lawn. And then I realized, oh, you're a Protestant then. It's just inescapable. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter your doctrine. Culturally,
Yeah.
I am a Protestant. So I had decided to give up on church entirely for the morning. And I packed up the baby and I was like, we'll go to the bakery or something. And I started driving down the road and I go by this church and there's some people wearing masks and some people not wearing masks. I'm like, well, I guess I should just go in there. And I've been going there ever since. And they're Pentecostal. And I disagree with the pastor on huge counts like mad. But he has a spine and he has put everything up online. He makes it available for people who don't feel like they can come. But he's been open forever. And one of the church's major missions is people in drug recovery.
Yeah.
And they open up at 7:00 every morning. So if you need to see another person, because that's what keeps you off of crack, they're there for them. And I find that to be so impressive. And of course, like I've tried to broach the topic of art with him a couple of times and he gets just like glazed over, like uncomfortable. So I'm letting it go for now. But so that happened. And then the other thing in super, super duper synchronicity land, not very long before that, I had kind of gotten to being more part of the Mercury Black's whole sorting myself out stuff. And I had been really struggling with trying to figure out what I was trying to figure out, like trying to figure out what my problem with it all was. And I hated that. And like, it was like, there's a restlessness to it that I couldn't quite shake. And Mercury is an interesting character. For me, he's like, when he's available, because he has his up and down times, he's somebody with zero dissidence. And like, it almost scares me to talk to him because I see how clarifying that can be. But I really, really wanted to, and I couldn't get the bug out of my brain. So I ended up talking with him, and I don't talk with him one-on-one that often. I wait till he's in chat or doing a thing, and he did some really nice Zoom events, kickoff of COVID, because he just had this different understanding of what it's like to be in isolation. And he was like, oh, if people aren't wanting to do that, like, it was great. It was really great. I think he played to his strengths doing that. But anyway, talked to him one-on-one one time, and I was like, well, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out. And we went into it about belief a little bit. And then he's like, and this is paraphrasing because I didn't write it down at the time. He said to me, well, the way I see it, it comes down to 2 points. Either you believe all the pain, suffering, and horror in the world is worth it for existence to exist, or you don't believe that and you want vengeance on being. And it's a kicker because we get wrapped up in like the Christ, God, are you Christian, are you not Christian thing? But that is more what my problem was. I didn't know if it had been worth it for existence to exist. And then like, so now in a sense, like I know I believe, but I don't know that I believe what Christians believe, but I know that I have that faith. I always had that. Like even on my doubtiest doubter day, never thought we should just implode all of existence. Like, so I found that interesting, and I thought that was something worthwhile of the channel. And I've kind of quit bothering myself about defining myself. Like it's just kind of boring now. I know that I'm acting on my convictions and I'm just not stressing. And it's just better. Like, and also in really, really weird things, when I went to that Pentecostal church was not long after I had just had this conversation with Mercury Black, which if you don't know, he's a bipolar guy who calls himself a wizard. Guess what the pastor's last name is at the Pentecostal church? Black. Which just is like, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for that. That was, I really appreciate that. I mean, you're just very honest, and your candor is helpful and refreshing. So
Yeah, that's about what I'm good at. So
no, you're good at
I'm glad
art
you
too.
like it, because there's plenty of people who don't, and then it's like,
Why don't you think people don't like it?
I think it makes people scared.
Scared of what?
Well, if you haven't reviewed where you are, and then you find out that someone else has, then like it's like it's like peeling the skin off the world. Which is why like I really like talking to Mercury Black, because he's not bothering to pretend there's any skin at all.
No.
But if you don't like to think about that, it's quite disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
so
that I like how you put it. No skin on the world. I mean, Mercury with his, with his life, and anybody who doesn't know Mercury is he and Grizz was on the channel not too long ago, are now running the Sorting Myself Out channel. And it doesn't surprise me that you've settled, at least for now, on a church that gets very real with drug addicts. I mean, because that, how can I say this?
Well, I think they have a clarity of the hazard. That's the thing about like COVID. People were really wrapped up of everybody getting sick.
Yeah.
But there's a clarity to the fact there are other hazards.
Yeah.
And like it would have been much more detrimental. And it's not like nobody's gotten sick. It's not like the no contact hasn't affected people.
Yeah.
It's just been worth the risk the whole time for them.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I often struggle with how to put into words and to convey to my congregation is that I noticed this, especially moving back to the United States after my years in the Dominican Republic, that there is sort of a low frequency propaganda that is exuded in the subtext of it's often in the commercial advertising. It's in the political.
Is it low frequency, Paul?
Well, I don't know.
Is it pretty?
Yeah, that might be it. Well, I think people hear it in different levels, because it's sort of puts you to sleep, and it gives you kind of a nice dream that suggests a very sweet, but in the end cruel lie that it's exactly the drug addicts and people like Mercury who, their life simply can't afford that lie, and so they know it. And there are many people who can't afford the lie, but there's enough of it in the culture that to talk about it doesn't necessarily, people who are enchanted, the enchantment isn't easy to break. The spell isn't easy to break. And so, no, I think, and again, that's one of the gifts that Mercury has, that when you've got, when you have very little left to lose,
Yeah.
you just don't play certain games. So,
Well, and I think those are the people that, given the algorithms don't betray us all, should excel in this space.
yeah.
Because when you have the affordance that this can be really your life, you really have something to give to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's rare and it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're raising a baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that motherhood, if you're a good mother, motherhood changes people. So does fatherhood, but I think motherhood, even at a deeper level. Fathers can kind of skate and, maintain a certain something of distance, but in my experience, that motherhood grabs on deep. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the community wants me to engage more with the other women in the community. It wasn't just this community that's wanted that. The portal wanted that too. And it's not that I don't want to. I sort of realized I feel like I'm about 2 years old in the presence of women that have been being women longer.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know that I was being a woman at all. Like for a huge period. And so I just barely started watching Mary Cohen stuff. Not that I dislike her, but it's just exceptionally uncomfortable because it's so outside of any domain that I've ever operated in. And I think I've realized about it, I feel about 2 years old because I've been operating in completely other domains.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're dead and you have to become a new person. And it's very complicated.
So, well, where do you go?
I don't mean that to be super negative either. It's totally worth it. And I love my child and I want to grow. It's just, it's one of those unfortunates about modernity that how do you grapple with that? Like every measure that I used to measure myself by is gone, worthless, and possibly a detriment to being a mother. Yeah, so that's been its own thing.
That's again, I really appreciate your honesty. I don't see this kind of honesty a lot, especially not with a mic on something being recorded. And at the end of this, you could say, Paul, lose the video, or Paul, don't share the video. I mean, you could say any of those things. There's a reason I don't live stream these things.
Well, it's better that you don't, because I think it's good to maintain the availability of the confidence of being a pastor. And I actually think you are more adept at being able to use the Discord space than anyone I've ever seen, because you know how to, like, when you have the discernment for delegation. And I look at what happened with some of the other places that I have mentally inhabited, and I thought all discords would always boom and then fracture and then begin again and boom and then fracture. And I had just kind of let that was just what it was. And yours has had this stability, and I attribute it directly to the framework of Christianity within it. Because you're willing to call out a hierarchy. And if you aren't willing to call out a hierarchy, then you're subject to the invisible hierarchy that will eventually wrestle itself into nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate. Like, I wish people were taking notes. Like, I still want to like make you a pastor of pastors for internet. That's a personal goal. I don't know how to get you to do that, but
well, there's the submission thing. And well, that's so I gosh, I really appreciate this conversation, because I've been watching the infatuation with orthodoxy, big O orthodoxy. And I don't in any way, and everyone who is going to the Orthodox Church pursuing a dream, I want them to find their dream, and I want the Orthodox Church to grow and flourish and to be able to fulfill that dream. But what you said earlier about the deep Protestant formation that all of us have been raised in, whether or not anyone's gone to church. I mean, you just said it. So I'll sit on the lawn with my Orthodox study Bible.
Yeah. Well, and in preparation for this, I actually called my dad yesterday because I knew you would be interested. So my dad, he went to 2 different Bible schools and then another school, never getting a degree because he wouldn't stay organized enough. Well, I don't think he cared. I think he's one of those people that you should just get it, or you should just take the classes you want to learn, which is classic. So he went to Wessington Springs in the Dakotas, and then he went to Pillsbury, Minnesota, and a bunch of my family have went to Pillsbury. And then he was part of a Fourth Baptist thing. That's where he got his like part of something that he never became an official minister, but he was part of Fourth Baptist Minneapolis, St. Paul. And then my granddad on my grandma's side of his family was a Western minister with the Methodist American Sunday School Union. And so I didn't know if that would mean something to you, but I know pulling out some of these different lineages and the guy who's Hutterite or whatever, like it's all very interesting to people. And so I thought that would be useful for part of like what has happened. And I guess one of the things, like if I could have the kind of candor and conversation with my local Pentecostal pastor as like I could with you, I wish I could explain to him that the fear of hell is just non-existent, but the fear of meaninglessness is something that could be used. And trying to convince someone that hell exists in order to convince them that they can be saved by my secret answer sounds very suspicious.
And
like it's just a futile, like it's just a silly, futile, non-functional road. And I like people are living in hell, a day-to-day hell of wondering if existence is worth it. And why can't we address that hell? Why do we have to supplant and say, oh, well, that hell's silly, stupid feelings that you feel that's crippling your life? Instead, worry about this eternal hell that may or may not exist. And I'm like, wow, way to help somebody with their existential crisis.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, but that's not like something I'm putting on you. Like that's like major complaint I've had with the church like forever. Like it's just like, why are you doing that? It's not useful.
Yeah. Well, it's something. Well, I can understand. It's easy to say that to me because it's an idea that I've had for a very long time. It became quite clear that if the first move in evangelism pastors need to make is to convince people of the threat of hell, well, you're probably going to be spending all of your time doing that. And I'm old enough to have seen the page turn on that. When I was young, D. James Kennedy had Evangelism Explosion, where you'd go door to door and tell people, what would you say to Jesus if you died tonight for him to let you into his heaven. And it just seemed completely obvious to me that many, many people in our culture have zero existential anxiety about eternal damnation. You know, regardless of the threat, that's not going to be a conversational move to make.
Well, and honestly, that's a huge draw to Orthodox and Catholics, because it was always logically invalid. Even I think I was 13 or 14 years old when I first got into like, oh, I have a doctrinal difference. And I just didn't tell anyone because that was easier. But like, I have some really good Catholic friends, and they explained to me purgatory, because we were figuring out what was different between Catholicism and, like, I said Baptist, but we were really kind of a non-denominational situation, non-denominational Protestant situation, and Catholics. And one of them was the eternal virginity of Mary, and Mary only had one kid, or did Mary have other kids? And then the other one was purgatory. And I remember thinking to myself, it's obvious. Some people don't get a chance in life. Like, they just don't. Like, they're just born in a freaking war zone or whatever, or everyone is terrible to them. I'm not saying like there aren't ways, but the whole idea that if you were good enough, a Bible tract should fall off of a semi truck and then you can get to heaven is crazy. What if you're born in Islam? What if you're born in India? Like, and one of the major reasons, and like, I still don't have it pinned down. I don't have pinned down where doubt crept in. But one of the things was watching Islam for as long as I did and seeing zealotry kill and having nothing but empathy for the young kids that would do it. Because it would have been me. I would have walked right onto a bus and been like, this is God's will. Like, if I had grown up in that culture, because I just, and it's very confusing. It's like, how can I have any doubt when I also have like walk through fire faith? It's very complicated. Like, because it's, I mean, honest to God, it depends on the day. And now it's like, I'm not following doctrine or a pastor that way, but I do see clearly I must follow my convictions. The times when things were very, very wrong is when I was acting against conviction. And I just flat won't do it. But it's way different than when I was a kid, because when I was a kid, I was looking for those really black and white, is it right, is it wrong answers? And that's where thinking could stop. And I would just absolutely do what was right to whatever peril. And it was not good. And then I left the parent situation, went right into the army situation, and it left like a crippling availability of really strict rules to just follow blindly. And then I didn't grow up. And that was its own thing.
How long have you been out of the Army now?
Well, I got out from the first time I got out of active duty was in 2008. But then 2 years later, I got back in the National Guard, and I was in the National Guard for 3 years. But the National Guard is kind of weekend deal. I only did one of those active, and that was in the States. But then I started working for the Department of Defense as a civilian contractor. And I was basically doing the same job, only less safely with less benefits. Because that's what life was like for military intelligence professionals under Obama, hence my not wanting Hillary. And absolute existential, like, couldn't talk to anybody for multiple days over this whole travesty. But anyway.
But it sounds like, you know, when you describe, you know, you're a 2-year-old when you listen to certain people, and you grew up in a very black and white framework, and then you were in the Army, which is, of course, yeah, you said it perfectly, you know, an availability of rules to follow blindly. It's plenty of them there. And then, you know, you're in and out sort of the twilight of the military. I can see where you have a degree of both responsibility, but also freedom that would make doubt salient
Yeah. No, I really tried to figure it out because my whole divorce was so sharp, and you would have thought that would have been the beginning. But I remember very specifically that was not when I first had doubt. I had it a couple of years after that, like good faith, like felt good about going to church, like didn't feel like there was any uh dissidence, hypocrisy. Like didn't feel like there was any hypocrisy showing up. Like I felt good about it. And that would have been 2010. And then 2011, I had a very good friend who, well, I don't know if he can be considered a very good friend because I'd only knew him for about 3 months. But he was in my guard unit, and then he was at the church I was going to, and he he was letting himself have a beard between drills, which you're not supposed to do. And he recognized me, but I didn't recognize him because we were out of uniform, and he's having this beard he's not supposed to have. And so I got kind of my first set of friends after my divorce were with those guys, and he died. He died in an accident. And I don't think I don't think that's exactly where doubt crept in either, but I'm not sure. And then it gets downhill, and then I went and I had to leave Colorado and I had to go to DC. And I remember this whole time after, so I had a very serious divorce in 2010. And after that, I got really on this whole I'm going to educate myself thing. And I taught myself about the church, but also I was studying a bunch of things so I could CLEP tests. And a couple of them were biology. And I had huge conflict because my parents are very just absolute creationists. Just absolute creationists. They pulled me out of school when I was in 3rd grade because I was fighting with the teacher about creationism. Because that's totally how you teach your kid to deal with the conflict. Just, but I mean, I don't think homeschooling is bad either, so it's complicated. But then I remember I watched the Green brothers on their whole series of like learning. Like I watched all of it because I clept natural science. And I remember them saying very distinctly, like, evolution is a thing and you have to deal with it. And I don't even, this is the kicker here. I heard it, I listened to them, and at the same time, I believe evolution happens, but I don't believe it's strictly how they say it is. Because I've watched animals and natural processes, and selective for like circular trait breeding always degrades the animal. So it makes sense, but it like the epigenetics stuff makes way more sense to me than the current theories. And like uniformitarianism in geology is stupid. It's just wrong. Like I remember sitting in college and having to write one thing and thinking to myself, the person who did this has not been outside enough. Like they just haven't been outside, like far enough outside, because you go through Utah, you fly over Afghanistan, you go to Korea. Uniformitarianism kind of is a thing, but it's not there was catastrophes. It might not have been the catastrophes like the catastrophists were saying, but there were catastrophes on this planet that defy uniformitarianism. So how can I know that? And then did that all of that college stuff that I become immersed in to get not stupid, did that corrode my faith while I know I don't even take them for their word? I don't know. I really can't say when exactly doubt crept in. And I really even struggle at this point to define what my doubts are. Yeah. But I just know they're there and they just kind of haunt me.
What do you think your faith is?
Well, that's a good question. What faith is and what belief is?
Well, in your faith in particular. I mean, because you're feeling doubt, and to me that sounds like you used to not feel it.
No, I didn't.
So was faith certainty? mean, what, I mean, because, and I
Yeah.
don't want this to be like cognitive. I mean, because you talked about that. That was the black and white, but you said, just when things weren't black and white is when it wasn't when you lost your faith. So I'm just curious. I'm just
Yeah,
curious about the faith.
I would like to figure that out. I remember when I was like still in high school, like before I left home, literally could walk in the garden and feel like I spoke to God. Like really feel it. Like, and sometimes if I'm in church, like I still cry in church when people sing. Sometimes. But I've become very, very adverse to praying past like the Lord's Prayer or like a psalm or something like that makes sense to me, but nothing else makes any sense. First of all, you don't know what you need. You don't know what you need at all. And then second, God already knows. He knows all that you're going to say. So pleading with God, any of that kind of stuff it feels very gross to me. It feels icky. Like the Orthodox prayers make more sense to me because they're just kind of on schedule.
Well,
Like, and I don't know if that's really a straight answer to your question, but it's a very squishy place in the brain. Like, I don't even know how to answer it. Like, yeah.
well, I thought I heard an answer in there because I heard communion. I mean, when you say you could walk in the garden and feel like you spoke to God, and you can still cry sometimes, when you hear people sing. To me, that sounds, it almost sounds like to me, it sounds like you're grieving a relationship that's lost. I mean, that's doubt. I
Yeah.
mean, when of all people come across my Twitter stream a couple of days ago, Pamela Anderson, the Baywatch chick, tweeted out a quote from Nietzsche about trust, and I can't quote it. I should have memorized it. It was Nietzsche. Nietzsche was an astounding writer, and it basically made the point that you know it wasn't the fact that you lied to me, which was devastating. It's that I don't know if I can trust you again. In other words, it's looking to the future. And I think in many ways, I mean, doubt is all about doubt and its opposite. The opposite of doubt is not certainty. The opposite of doubt is security.
Yeah. And I think when I started to be able to hear the us and them game in the church, I think that's part of it. But then also, what makes things canon and what makes things not canon sounds very fishy nowadays to me. It's like, oh, because this king was okay with it in this century, that's what makes it? Like, not a good argument. But I don't know. I don't know. But I've been more okay with living in the in-between space. I'm more okay with I'm an artist that sees stuff. Like I've been way more okay with that than I used to be. So
You're an artist that sees stuff. What do you mean?
well, like what do I mean? So Young called them instances. Instances, like where it's like having a strong imaginary experience.
Okay.
And that's where the majority of my work comes from. Maybe I'm making it up. It's quite possible. Maybe it's like how you make up a dream. Like the dream is made up out of your stuff mostly, like we think. We don't really know.
Yeah.
But it's like that. And sometimes that's when I'm asleep and sometimes when it's awake. And that's what my art is mostly based off of. Yeah. And that's the stuff that makes art teachers super uncomfortable. And like I can compile one like I could compile an art, but it's worthless to me because I'm figuring out these little stories and things. But then also it's not about art. It's about, this is one of those things you start getting to doubt your words. It's about leaping through frames. And that's why I'm not content just like on your Discord, or just because it's not just a community experience for me.
Right.
I'm looking for something that I don't know what it is or how to get there.
Yeah.
And I find it enthralling. It's great. And so looking for those little lines and crossing frames and then pointing them out to other people who should know about them. And so I've been very interested in connecting creators and connecting people with people who can help them, or just like finding a loose end and tying it to another loose end, and then it's a thing. Yeah.
What do you want?
I want to inspire the soul of the world.
What do you want for yourself?
To make beautiful things.
Okay.
And that is the thing that unifies my life across all domains.
Okay.
Because I can do that as a home, I can do that as a mother, I can do that in relationships, I can do that physically in my little artwork things. I can do that in the day-to-day.
Are you scared?
As much as anyone who's maybe sane. Okay. Yeah.
What are you scared of?
Apathy.
Why?
It's the most destructive thing, I think.
That's true. That's very true. I mean, caring makes the world go round in a lot of ways. It really does. I mean, people who don't care, there's nothing there. They're dead. Has this been helpful?
I guess we'll find out. I worry to share where I am because I would hate that my doubt was contagious.
That's reasonable. That's reasonable.
But I know there are other people living in like little silent agonies that just falsify their church thing to become a member.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's important. And I want to see the church be able to be strong. And I think times like these, and maybe even spaces like these, is a place the church could utterly excel.
Yeah.
And maybe it has to, like maybe it's the only thing that can.
Yeah.
And it's very complicated to have as much frustration as I have with the church and then still see it as definitely the right answer.
Yeah.
It's like, why do I feel that way? Why am I not on board with these guys that want to build the new religion of no religion? And I hear that and I'm like, nope, that won't work at all. And I can't tell them logically why. So I just go and like quietly poke holes in things for them. But, or maybe not very quietly, but but I don't have any confidence in that idea. We can't make a religion that's not a religion because religions are just cropping up everywhere. We're in a extreme polytheism under the guise of atheism, like crisis. Like, because people got money and people got clout and people got brands and people got like the hyper spiritualism crystal stuff and people got minimalism and veganism and politics, and it's just all polytheism.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, you're helping me. I mean, this has been really insightful, and this has been really good. I'm not saying it's over, but I'm just saying.
Oh no, that's
been helping me.
This one is hilarious. I've come to the conclusion that the simulation is just an atheist argument for creationism. And maybe you've heard that before, but I find it really funny.
Well, the funny thing about it is, once you posit a simulation, you have to posit a simulator, and so it's like you were worried, you didn't want a God because you're worried what that God would think, and now you've got someone who's programmed the simulation. I mean, you don't get out of these things quite so easily.
It's just very funny.
It is quite funny. It is quite funny. And even the name of it, and again, we're kind of stuck with the name right now, but simulation is exactly the wrong name, because what they're simulating their lives. How egocentric of us. You know, when we play games, some of the games we play are sort of like us, but very few games are like us.
It's like Jesus having to be a particular color in art. And you're like, oh, you've missed the whole point entirely of like, why represent Christ? Like, oh man.
Wow. Well, what do you want to do? You want to call it here? You want to keep going? I'm okay either way.
We can call it here if you want to. Like, I probably only have horrible art people things to talk about past this.
Horrible art people things. I don't even know what that means.
Well, I haven't thought of any solutions, and I have my whole own channel about art things, so I can do that there. So
okay. Well,
that's probably good for today.
It's probably good for today. Well, I want to say thank you, Sally. I want to say, I will send this to you. I will upload it to YouTube unlisted, and I will send you the link, and you can look at it or not look at it, and no rush. You can send me a note and say, let's keep it between us. You can say, take it off the server. You can say, go ahead and share it. You can share it with whomever you would want to share it with. And
no, I'm pretty good with it. I've been living very singularly. I've just accepted that whatever my mom sees, she tells the entire county about for some time now. So.
Well, God bless your mom.
Yeah, she probably won't find it because her abilities on you, but if she did, it'd be okay because I would have told her anyway. So
yeah. No, you haven't. Often what kills videos being shared is someone discloses something that might not be appropriate to be public about someone besides the two of us, and then you really do have to say, no, not going to share it. So
well, I'm glad you do that for people too.
Well,
because people are desperate for it.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. Do you want me to pray for you?
You can.
Okay, I will.
All right.
Lord, thank you for Sally. I hear her frustration, her pain. I could feel her doubt. And I hear it as a loss of a relationship that she once enjoyed. And that's really hard. And Lord, you have, if you read Lives of Saints, some of your greatest tools have felt very far from you sometimes when they did their most important work. And I know that so often when you look at the crucifixion, my God, why have you forsaken me? Then Christians believe this is in some ways a climax of the entire human story. And it's the Son of God crying out in pain because he can't feel his Father's love. And so, Lord, I thank you for Sally and her openness and her honesty and her willingness to share who she is and to speak with candor to her friends who will watch this video, and many strangers who, Lord, I know some will want to take up words to, dispel the doubt. And I'm sure she would love someone to be able to take up words to dispel the doubt. But many, Lord, I think will listen to this and understand because they feel something similar, or at least relatable to what she feels. And so, Lord, you allow us to ask for pretty much anything we want. And so I pray, Lord, that you would be with her. And I ask that you would, even if it's not hers right now to feel the kind of intimacy with you that she loves, or perhaps once again a degree of certainty or whatever, I just ask that you give her a sense that you are with her and you will never, never, ever leave her. And whatever things you bring her through, whether it's fire, whether it's drought, whether it's cold, whether it's water, that you will be her God and she will be your daughter. So bless her, keep her, and continue to use her as I know you are already. So hear my prayer. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Amen. I didn't realize you meant right now.
I cut it out.
No, it's okay. I just didn't realize it.
I know. I don't do it that often in these conversations, but when I don't know, it's my pastoral.
No, it's exactly like my dad. Exactly.
Yeah, it's when pastors see pain, they want to pray. So, all right, Sally, I will send this to you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.